Welcome to Athletic Alert. I'm Rob. These are my pals Jesse and Colin. And behind the cameras is our producer, Brett. We are a sports talk show giving you a weekly dose of the biggest news in sports. And we're going to jump into the top stories of the week, a segment we like to call Athletic Alert. Jesse, let's talk about Deron Williams getting bought out of his contract by the Brooklyn Nets. He will get paid $27.5 million out of the $43.3. What do you think is the future of the Nets going forward with this payment?
Now, Deron Williams, he had a pretty good season last season, but a lot of the Nets fans, they didn't think he lived up to the expectations, and he got a lot of money for this, $27.5 million. And going to the Mavs is a big move for him and the Mavs because now they're really a contender. They didn't really have a point guard before. Having a point guard really helps them out. So I think for Deron, it's good for him. It's good for the Mavs. Definitely helps those teams out. The player and the team out. The Nets, I think they're going to struggle a little bit. They got no true, floor general anymore.
They have Jarrett Jack.
They got Jarrett Jack. He definitely lived up to it last year. But can he do it again? I'm not sure about that. And all season long, we'll see.
Colin, do you think that this was a good move for the Nets, or do you think they should have traded him?
I think it was a good move overall for the Nets. I think, Deron was a little bit of an injury risk. I've been watching him. He doesn't look like happy and healthy. I think maybe he needed a change of scenery. The Nets are, a franchise like the Yankees. They got the money to make moves, and if they have to make a move like that, they had to. Maybe he just wasn't fitting in with what they wanted to do. But, on the flip side, I think Mark Cuban really had to make this move because of, with everything that happened with DeAndre Jordan.
Well, we forgot to say that he will be signing a 2-year deal, $10 million with the Mavs after he got bought out, if he clears waivers. So they didn't know that. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
all right, he'll be signing a contract with the Mavericks, which I think is great for them, and Mark Cuban, because since that DeAndre Jordan deal fell through, he really had to, bring at least a little bit of star power back so the fans, actually know that this could be a contender this year.
All right, so our next story, we're going to go over to baseball and talk about the All-Star Game vote. Jesse, what's going on?
Well, I think we've all heard Carlos Martinez going to the All-Star Game and Mike Moustakas going to the All-Star Game. Not so much of a surprise. I mean, the players are a little bit of a surprise, but based on the fan bases, yeah, a lot of people expected this to happen. The Royals, all those All-Stars at the beginning, the 7 people that were going to start the All-Star Game for them just because, the loyal Royals all making the votes. And Carlos Martinez, lived up to Adam Wainwright's injury, so I wouldn't say he doesn't deserve it, but we're going to talk more about this later in the show when we get into another segment. But what do you think of the All-Star picks over a lot of good players?
I think the fan bases, I give a lot of respect to them. I think the Royals have just been a struggling team for a long time before last year and the great run they had. And, it really showed through their All-Star voting how much they really care for their team. But I just think from a numbers perspective, a team perspective, the Royals just have so many people in the All-Star game. Do they really need another one? I think there's more people who are more deserving. And
yeah.
And that's just, I feel happy for Moose, and, I think he's been having a great year, but at least from the American League side, I think there were some better candidates.
My question to you is, we knew that in the beginning a lot of Royals were, I think 8 Royals were starting lineup, except Mike Trout, who was in center field. But now, is it unfair to try to promote the Royals not being in there? Is that as unfair as all the Royals being in instead of, all the Royals are being voted because of the fan base? Is it fair to say, don't vote for them, encourage everyone else to not vote for those guys? Do you think it's an even thing?
I don't want to say, and tell people, you shouldn't vote for this guy, they have too many people, but, because, it's the MLB made it up to the fan bases. If you want to vote for your guys, you vote to get in. So, in a way, maybe it's just because the Royals fans are into baseball more. And if they're into baseball more, then maybe they do deserve more people in the All-Star game. I just think that, there's so many more people that are were a little more deserving of it. I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours about people who didn't get into the All-Star game. There's so many great players, but I think overall, I'm happy for the Royals. I would have liked to see a few more different people in there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to basketball. Breaking news: Joel Embiid setback on his ankle. Jesse, what effect does this have on the role of Okafor in the 76ers organization?
Well, Embiid out last season, out again. That's huge for him. I think his value is just going to go down so much. He was the obviously an early pick, and everybody expected him to be great. Injury. And Okafor, now he's probably going to get more time. I'm sure he's not happy about Embiid getting injured, but at the same time, he's probably looking forward to the playing time. And I think this can really help him out because obviously he was so dominant in college basketball, and people want to see what he could do in the NBA. I think him and Nerlens Noel, the power forward, if they can run those two down low, they're a pretty deadly combination because both young guys, both big, good rebounders, and aggressive people. So, I mean, the 76ers could improve a lot from, their struggles.
He was the first pick of the 76ers in last year's draft, so it'll be interesting to see what his career holds in the upcoming years. So let's go right into our next segment called Truth or Trash. Colin, explain to the viewers what that is.
All right, Truth or Trash is a segment that we came up with, and what we are going to do is we take statements that we have made from, throughout sports within the recent weeks, and we are going to discuss whether those statements are the truth or just a big load of trash, guys.
All right, so the first statement is DeAndre Jordan made the right decision to stay in LA. Now, I have the statement right here, and I'm going to say that it's a load of trash. Brett, bring over that trash can, crumpling that up. Get that out of here. All right. I'm going to tell you why that's trash. I think that he would be a franchise player if he went to the Dallas Mavericks. He has a lot of potential. He has a lot of talent, obviously. Obviously, he needs to work on the free throw on that line. But yeah. I think that he would be a better fit there. I mean, Dirk would teach him. Dirk is willing to come off the bench for him. I don't know. I mean, in LA, he had problems with Chris Paul. That's why he left in the first place. Blake Griffin, I see him being a bigger star than DeAndre down the paint. But I'm not gonna lie, I see the Clippers being a strong team, but I don't see them winning a championship in the next 3 years. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm gonna say truth on this one because I like him with the Clippers. But he would definitely work with the Mavs. I just think he would be happier with the Clippers. He's from what we've heard, he's definitely wanting to be around guys that will pass him the ball. He wants to be a scorer, and he hasn't really. I mean, he's taken shots, but they're all inside. They're all close to the basket, of course. And Chris Paul is the perfect guy to get to the ball. And on the Mavericks, they might have Deron Williams. They got Dirk, a big scorer, and
Chandler Parsons.
Yeah, Chandler Parsons, a lot of scorers on the team. The loss of Monta Ellis obviously clears up a little bit of space there. But having him down low, I don't think he would primarily be a scorer and be getting the ball a lot to score the points in Dallas because they'd really want him to clean up get the offensive rebounds for the guys that miss, put them back in. That would be his job there. And I think with the Clippers, he's going to be getting the ball more just like he wants to. Chris Paul, obviously one of the elite passers in the game. He can score he can score way more points than he does right now. He can't, but he decides, I'm going to pass the ball, I'm going to get some assists, and I'll score a little bit, but I want to share the ball with my teammates. Obviously, Blake Griffin also is going to do a majority of scoring in LA, but I think DeAndre Jordan will be happier with the Clippers than he will with the Mavs.
Colin, what's your opinion on that? Is that truth or trash?
I agree with Jesse. I'm going to go with the truth on that one. I know DeAndre maybe hasn't had the best relationship with Chris Paul, but I think him and just Chris Paul as teammates kind of played into his decision-making in this. I know he agreed with the Mavs and he didn't eventually sign with them, but I think part of the reason was, maybe he came to realize that, Chris Paul is a top tier point guard. He can score, he can pass, he can do it all. And I know maybe he was a little upset he wasn't getting the ball enough, but he sat down and he talked a little bit with Chris Paul, and I'm sure they came to an agreement, because Chris Paul can, he's got so much talent, and I think he realized, because like we were talking about before, like when DeAndre didn't sign with the Mavs and he went back to LA, the Mavs didn't, announce, Duran didn't come out and say, I signed with the Mavs. So everybody was like, well, who's the Mavs point guard? That's probably what DeAndre was thinking. Well, how am I supposed to get the ball with, there's going to be nobody there. So I think that played a role, and, I think, the fan base loves him. He just swallows up rebounds. He gives you a second chance to get a bucket, like almost every time. Yeah. So I'm going to go with truth on that one. I think he made the right decision.
Okay, our next truth or trash is Clayton Kershaw. He should have made the All-Star game over Carlos Martinez. I'm going to have to say trash. Brett, bring it back over here. Get out right now. All right, so let's go to some stats that I pulled out. Carlos Martinez, the first half of the season, 10-3. He has 113 strikeouts, 2.52 ERA, and a 1.22 WHIP. Now, Clayton Kershaw, he's 6-6. He does have the most strikeouts in the league. It's 160 strikeouts. He has 2.85 ERA, which is higher than Carlos Martinez, and he does have a lower WHIP of a 1.02. Now, he was the MVP last year, but that doesn't give you an automatic seat in the All-Star game for the following year. I think that Carlos Martinez has taken Adam Wainwright's place in the pitching rotation. 10 wins. He has a 1.20 ERA in the last 10 starts. That's Martinez, and I think that's pretty good. I think he's proven himself to be a good pitcher in the league. I think he should be on people's fantasy baseball teams. And I just see him as a more dominant pitcher than Clayton Kershaw right now. Clayton Kershaw has been struggling, even though he gets the strikeouts, even though the wins don't explain it all. His ERA is higher, and I just think that he's a less dominant pitcher than he was last year. Jesse, what do you have to say?
Now, I'm going to say that Clayton Kershaw should have made the All-Star game over Carlos Martinez. I'm going to say it's truth. And that's because not only does Clayton Kershaw have the most strikeouts in the league, he proved last game he really wants to go to this All-Star game. He had a complete game shutout, 9 innings, no runs, and 13 strikeouts to top off the last game before the All-Star game. He's proven he wants to go. His last few starts have been amazing, and obviously the MVP last year. I know it doesn't mean, next year you're going to the All-Star game or whatever, but when you look at Clayton Kershaw's stuff, his pitches are just insane. I see him as a better pitcher than Carlos Martinez. Even on all respect to Carlos Martinez, he's a great pitcher. He deserves to go to the All-Star game. But if I'm going Kershaw one-on-one with Martinez, I'm taking Kershaw. I don't care about the 6-6 record compared to the 10-3, because it's just lately he's been proving that he wants to go to that All-Star game. Last 10 games, no more than 3 earned runs allowed in any of the games, and he's had 5 or more strikeouts every single game this season. So, it's not all about the expectations that everybody had last year for him this year, because, last year, 1.77 ERA. What are the chances of that happening again? You can't expect that.
You can make the same thing. You can make the same point for Martinez. In his last 8 starts, he's 7-1. And you can show that he also wants to make a push for that All-Star game. Colin, what do you think? Truth or trash?
I'm going to go with, Jesse again. I think it's trash. But, actually, I'm going to throw out a new name in Johnny Cueto. Johnny Cueto is...
you're going to go with me on that one.
Oh, you're right. Yes, Jesse said truth. He thinks Clayton should make it.
So, Brett, bring over the trash can.
Bring over the trash can. I think it's trash. And I'm going to go with Johnny Cueto. Johnny Cueto is just one of those guys that, he's going to be going into free agency soon. He could be a guy that's being traded. The All-Star Game's in Cincinnati this year. I think it would be nice to see him there because the fans would get to see him. It would be his last time. And he proved the same thing. He matched Clayton Kershaw. He threw a complete game shutout too.
Yes, he did, and he had about 12 or 13 strikeouts, I believe.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah. So he, that's great. So he definitely wants to be there. I don't see him after the All-Star break coming back in the same Cincinnati uniform. I think he's going to get traded. I personally think Johnny Cueto should make it for those reasons, but I'm not disappointed that Carlos made it, or even if Clayton Kershaw made it. Any three of those guys, even Troy Tulowitzki, any of them, they're all All-Stars. So you can't really go wrong.
Okay, so our last truth or trash statement is Jesse's statement. Let's hear it.
All right, my statement: Giancarlo Stanton will end top 5 in home runs and RBIs by the end of this season. And I'm gonna say, even though he's got the injury right now, he's got the All-Star break, and I'm gonna say truth, he's gonna end in top 5. And I say this because even he's been out with the injury for about a week or a little bit more, and he's still top in home runs and second in RBIs. That's impressive. That is very impressive. 27 home runs, less than halfway through the season. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying he's gonna get 50, but on that track, he easily can. And I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but he can push for 40s. And last year he had over 100 RBIs, and he's definitely somebody that's gonna do it again. You can tell by, he smashes the ball. You watch him and he crushes it. 470, 480 footers.
Yeah.
And I just think, even with the injury, he's still top in home runs and second in RBIs. I can see him finishing top 5 in both categories.
I'm going to have to go with truth. Brett, you don't have to bring the trash can over this time. But
Good.
I see him being a top 5, but I don't see him being any higher than 4 because, as Jesse said, he is the league leader in home runs, but I see one of the guys below him, like maybe Trout or, surprising, maybe J.D. Martinez. He made a strong push as well.
Yeah,
I see them making, maybe coming out even a little bit harder next half of the season and just exploding. I don't know. And the ribbies, Giancarlo is more of a home run hitter. I definitely see him being in the top 3 in that, but I don't see him being top 5 in RBIs. I think there are a lot of other guys who are not home run hitters who get RBIs, and they just focus on being in the clutch situations and loving that. Maybe McCutchen will step up. A lot of guys who were good last year, including Clayton Kershaw, who are a little cold right now, but I think they're going to start heating up again. And I just like seeing those guys improve the second half of the season. So that's the truth for me.
Yeah, I'm going to round it out too. I'm going to say the truth. And it's just a sad story for, Giancarlo Stanton. It's been a rough couple of years. They gave him this huge contract, and
Still get paid though.
Oh yeah, definitely still getting paid. But every time he goes out there, it looks like, he is living past his contract. He is just exceeding. He is just a monster on the field, off the field. He's a great guy. But, every time he starts to get hot or he's, going off the charts, he gets injured. And, sometimes it's not his fault. Last year, he got hit in the face with that pitch. And, it makes fans wonder, should we have offered this contract to this guy? But,
it's not his fault.
Yeah, it's not his fault. And nobody should be worried. I think Giancarlo he loves the game of baseball. He wants to come back as soon as he can. Even though his team is probably out of contention, he wants to come back and he wants to give a show to the fans. And, he's still ahead, like you said, in home runs, right?
Yeah.
He's still first.
Still first.
Going into the All-Star break, which means he could still come back. He gets that little break to heal a little bit more, and he could come back and keep hitting dingers. So I think it's definite he's going to finish in the top 5 in home runs. Ribbies we'll have to see because, that's like a whole different kind of side of it. But usually ribbies come attached with home runs sometimes, so you never know. But I think Giancarlo is just one of the top, most exciting, great players in our game. It's sad to not have him here, but he'll still be a great player.
You can also relate his injury situation to David Wright. The Mets signed him to an 8-year contract a couple of years ago. Got hurt, last year at the end. Now he's hurt now. DL15. It's been a lot more than 15 days since he's been out. And he's got a really serious and potentially life-threatening injury.
All right, welcome to Thermostat, our next section on the show. So what this is, we've created a little formula to measure how hot or cold a player right now in the MLB, because that's the only sport that's going on that we're talking about right now. How hot or cold these players are, and this is going to give a degree measure of how hot they're doing or how cold they are right now. So let's start with Zach Greinke, one of the hottest pitchers in the league right now. He's got, in his last 5 games, no earned runs allowed, a 0 ERA, with a .53 WHIP. He's 3-0 in his last 5 games. He is taking the Dodgers single-handedly. Every 5 games, he's winning them games just by himself. If no runs scored on him, you can't lose. Next, let's go to one of the coldest players in the league, staying in LA, Jock Peterson. In his last 7 games, the last week he's played, he's batting .154. He has 2 RBIs and no home runs. And this is a guy we saw this whole season, amazing, hitting home runs. He had 20 in the beginning of the season as a rookie, and we were all just amazed by what he was doing in his rookie season. And now, his last couple weeks, he hasn't been performing. He's gotten 8 strikeouts in his last 7 games. Like I said, no home runs and a .154 batting average. That's not going to get him Rookie of the Year, just like he wanted.
So my 2 guys are pitcher Carlos Martinez and Adam Lind. So Carlos Martinez is a pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. He has been red hot at 96 degrees out in St. Louis. He has a 1.2 ERA. He has 70 strikeouts in his last 10 games, and he's allowed 2 runs in the last 3 games he's pitched. Now, that is really hot, and he's definitely one of the top pitchers right now in the MLB. And my second guy is Adam Lind. He's a little cooler than Carlos. He's a 76, nice breezy, 76 room temperature degrees out in Milwaukee. He has 12 hits in his last 10 games. He's batting .324 in his last 10 games. He's hit 5 of his 15 home runs in the last 10, and he has 10 runs, 1 in each of his last 10 games. So those are my 2 guys, and let's go over to Colin.
So my 2 guys are Brian Dozier of the Minnesota Twins and Jason Kipnis of the Cleveland Indians. Let's start off with Brian Dozier. Minnesota might be up north from the United States, but it is scorching hot right now with Brian Dozier on their team. Brian Dozier, as of Saturday morning, July 11th, he is first in the MLB in runs scored with 66 runs, tied only with Mike Trout. He has played 99% of all the games that the Twins have played the first half of the season. He leads all MLB second basemen in home runs with 19, the next being Stephen Drew of the Yankees with 12. He leads all MLB second basemen in RBIs as well with 49, and the next being Kinsler all the way at 39. He is an absolute stud. His last 7 games, 3 homers, 9 ribbies, and 2 stolen bases. He's putting up stats across the board, and in my opinion, he should be in Cincinnati. But we are going to switch over to the Cleveland side in Jason Kipnis. Cleveland starting to get a little cold right now. His last 7 games, Jason Kipnis, he has a .125 average, only hitting a .125 with 0 homers, 2 ribbies, and 8 strikeouts. He has 3 hits in this entire week span. Now, it's brought his average down. He is still hitting a scorching .328 on the season with 111 hits, but he could be headed in the wrong direction. He is a really cold 26 degrees Fahrenheit.
Enjoy the All-Star game, my
The All-Star
friends.
game. And one more thing, we spent a lot of time doing this. Just give us some help, like these videos, subscribe to our channel if you like this stuff. We're going to give you more of it every single week.
Helps us out.
Helps us out, it really does. Again, gives us a lot of pride and everything. So, Colin?
All right, this is
Say
Athletic
goodbye.
Alert.
All right.
Signing off.
Bye.
Sound the alarm.
All right, we're done.